You've probably met two people the exact same age, where one of them feels 20 years younger than the other, same birth year. Maybe they even grew up on the same street, but one of them lights up the second they start talking, and the other one already sounds like the interesting part of their life is behind them. And here's the strange thing. It's usually not about health. It's not money. It's not even good genes. You've seen people in great shape who feel old, and people with a bad back and worse knees who feel completely alive. So what is it actually? I'm going to give you 7 things these people have in common, and most of them you'll recognize right away. But stay with me to the end, because all 7 come down to one single thing, and it's not what you'd guess. It's one quiet decision people make about themselves without ever realizing they made it. Once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. You already know someone like this. The person at the family party who's 70-something and somehow ends up in the corner talking to the 20-year-olds, actually interested, asking real questions, not performing, just genuinely curious what the world looks like now. That's the first trait, and it's the simplest one. They stay curious. They'll pick up your phone and ask you to show them the app everyone's using. Now picture the opposite, because you know that person too. The relative who hands you their phone every time and says, "Just do it for me, I don't understand these things," who waves off anything new before you've even finished the sentence. Here's the part most people miss. Staying curious isn't really about being interested in things. It's about being willing to not know something. And that's the hard part. Most people don't stop being curious because they get lazy. They stop because admitting you don't understand something starts to feel like losing. Somewhere in your 40s, looking like you already know becomes more important than actually finding out. And that fear of looking unsure leads straight into the second trait, because it shows up somewhere you'd never think to look. Listen to how someone talks about the future. People who stay young still make plans, real ones. They're booking a trip for next spring before the winter's even over. They plant a tree, knowing they'll be the one pruning it in 5 years. Their calendar still points forward. Now, listen to someone who's aged early. Bring up next year and they say something like, "Oh, who knows if I'll even be around for that." They talk about their life in the past tense. The good years, the way it used to be. The future, when they mention it at all, is mostly something to get through. There's actual research on this. People who hold a positive view of their own aging live significantly longer by years than people who quietly expect decline. Not because they're fooling themselves, because what you expect from tomorrow changes what you do today. And that small shift, forward or backward, sets up the third trait, which is almost invisible until you look for it. The people who stay young keep people of different ages around them. Younger friends. Grandkids they actually text back in the grandkids' language, emojis and all. The neighbor 20 years younger they grab coffee with. It's so easy to do the opposite. As you get older, your world naturally shrinks down to people exactly like you. Same age, same memories, same complaints. You notice it at the gatherings. The conversation drifts to the same 3 topics. Whose hip is bad? Who passed away? How things were better before. A world made entirely of people your own age slowly turns into one long conversation about the past and about who's sick. The ones who stay young refuse to seal themselves in. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, and I want you to stay with me for a second. Everything I just said sounds like it's about people over 60. It isn't. You can already see right now who's going to be old at 70. And it has nothing to do with their back or their knees. It's the way they talk about tomorrow. Some people stopped living in the future at 35 and nobody noticed, least of all them. So while you're picturing some 70-year-old, ask yourself the harder thing. When was the last time you made a plan you were actually excited about? You probably just thought of someone in your life who's aging fast. The real question is whether you also just thought of yourself. Okay, that's the part most videos won't say out loud. Hold on to that, because the next trait is the one people are most ashamed to admit they've lost. The fourth one you can spot in something physical. Watch how someone like that moves through a normal day. They're doing things, carrying the groceries themselves and getting a little annoyed if you try to take the bag. Part of that is just staying in motion, but it's more than exercise. It's that they still feel needed. Think of it like a tool. As long as people keep reaching for you, you stay sharp. The day everyone stops reaching, you get quietly put in a drawer. Someone retires on a Friday, and by the next winter they look 10 years older, and nobody can quite say why. People don't get old and then stop being useful. A lot of the time it's the reverse. They stop feeling useful and then they get old. But feeling needed isn't enough on its own, because there's a fifth trait that decides whether you're actually still growing or just busy. They can still change their mind. Watch what happens at the dinner table when you tell most older people something that doesn't fit what they already believe. A lot of them just bounce it right off. The people who stay young actually consider it. They sit with it for a second and say, I never thought about it that way, at 70. Because the real aging isn't in your face. It's the moment your opinions set like cement. The day you can't be wrong anymore, you stop growing, and not growing is the actual definition of getting old. You can be 30 and already finished. You've met people like that too. And changing your mind takes something most people guard with everything they have, which brings us to the sixth trait. They can laugh at themselves. The people who age fastest are often the ones protecting their dignity all the time. Everything is a small insult. Being corrected at the table, being helped with the coat. The ones who stay young just don't protect themselves like that. They'll be the first to laugh when they call you by your brother's name or when they can't work the TV remote and have to wave a grandkid over. They're not embarrassed about being a beginner. And that's exactly where the cost comes in, because here's the part nobody mentions. Staying young after 60 asks something of you that's harder than any workout. It asks you to keep being a beginner, to be bad at things in front of people, to give up the comfortable seat of the wise old person who already knows everything and just gets nodded at. That's the trade. The person who needs to be respected, who needs to be the one with the answers, who can't stand looking unsure, slowly seals themselves back into the past, where they were certain of everything. It feels safer, it feels dignified, and it quietly makes you old. So the seventh trait is just the willingness to keep learning when you've earned the right to stop. To stay a little uncertain, to not be finished. And now here's the one thing I promised you. The thing all seven come down to. Remember the two people from the start. Same age, but one feels 20 years younger. Curiosity, plans, younger friends, feeling needed, changing your mind, laughing at yourself, staying a beginner. Every single one of those is really the same move underneath. The young one still thinks of their life as something that's happening to them, still unfinished, still in motion. The old one started talking about their life like it's a story that already ended, and now they're just describing it. That's it. That's the whole thing. Aging, the real kind, the kind that has nothing to do with your birthday, is the quiet moment you switch from the present tense to the past tense about your own life. And the almost unfair part is that it can happen at any age. You can be 65 and still fully in it. You can be 34 and already narrating. So maybe the real question isn't how old you are. It's whether you still talk about yourself like there's more coming. And if you've ever caught yourself doing the opposite, talking about your life like the good part already happened, you're not the only one. Most of us slip into it. The trick is just noticing, because the second you notice, you're already back in the present tense.